Welcome everybody to another in the AFSI Zoom meeting series. We started this at the beginning of the pandemic, or actually a couple of months into the pandemic, and we've been continuing with it. It's really a wonderful thing because it's allowed us to bring people together who normally we would not be able to. My name is Judy Friedman Kadish, and I am the Director of Americans for a Safe Israel. Just a little bit, about a month ago, we were in Israel. We did a mission, and we went from the tunnels of Hamas coming into the Gaza border to Har Habayit, to Hebron, to Yerushalayim. We were all over the place, and it was absolutely wonderful. And Israel is there, and it is waiting for all of you. Now I understand everybody can come in. Certain tests are required, but we generally do 2 trips a year. This was our fall trip. We'll be doing another one in the spring, and taking this opportunity to invite you. Another thing I want to mention is that on Wednesday morning at 10 o'clock, we'll be outside in front of the Israeli consulate in solidarity with the people of Jerusalem and with Am Yisrael to lend our voice to those who disagree with the opening of a Palestinian consulate in the center of Jerusalem. We feel that there is no way. Actually, Israel must approve this under international law. We understand that Prime Minister Bennett and Foreign Minister Lapid have already said that they do not believe it belongs, but we have not yet heard any response from the American government or the State Department, and we are going to keep going until we hear that they have given up on this foolish idea. So now, what everybody's here for, we are very, very pleased to have with us Itamar Marcus. He is the founder and head of the Palestinian Media Watch based in Jerusalem. And he's here to tell us about the world of the Palestinian child, or PA child abuse of their own children. We thank our South Florida chapter chair. AFSI has chapters around the country. We thank Carol Flato, who is our South Florida chapter chair, for sponsoring this meeting. So many Palestinian Arab terrorists in recent years are teenagers, including some as young as 13 years old. This presentation will explore how the Palestinian Authority successfully indoctrinates even young children to see Israelis, also Jews, as a powerful and dangerous force in the world, turning even good people and children into terrorists and terror supporters. We are pleased to host this Zoom meeting with Itamar. Palestinian Media Watch is one of the foremost authorities on Palestinian ideology and policy. Itamar makes regular presentations to legislators, governments, and other decision makers, exposing PA hate and terror promotion in education, sports, culture, and other frameworks in the PA controls. His book, Deception, co-authored with Nan Jacques Zilberdik, was acclaimed by the founder of Human Rights Watch, Robert Bernstein, as one of the most important books you handle in your lives. Marcus has received awards from ZOA, Israel Media Watch, and EMET, and was recognized as being among the world's top 100 people positively influencing Jewish life and the State of Israel by the Algemeiner newspaper. Without further ado, I will hand the stage over to Itamar. He has a fascinating program for us. So welcome, Itamar.
Thank you very much, Judy, and welcome everybody. And I'm very pleased to meet all of you, even if it's only by Zoom. I'm going to share my screen, and then we will be able to continue. Okay. You see the title, The World of the Palestinian Child, child abuse of their own children. Now, that's a very strong statement. What person abuses their own children? What state, as a state, or not a state, but an authority, a government would abuse their own children? What I want to do is show you the world of the Palestinian child, and I'm hoping by the time we finish today, you will agree with me that the Palestinian Authority is a horrific child abuser of Palestinian children. Now, Palestinian Media Watch was founded in 1996. We study everything we can about the Palestinian Authority from open sources. We use all of the open sources today that exist, be it social media, Facebook, Twitter accounts of the leadership, as well as the official newspaper, the official TV. And because we study all of this, we have a staff of 19 people now. We get a very, very good sense of the Palestinian Authority, what they want of the people, where they're pulling them, how they see peace, how they see Jews. And it's completely different than the messages that you're getting around the world. And I want to give you today, this evening, I guess this evening in Israel, this afternoon, where you are, I want to give you a little window into the Palestinian Authority world, especially the world of the child. Now, you see here, we study things even as far as sports. And I want to open up. Now, first thing I want to show you is this picture. And what you see here is something that happened in May of this year. And what you see is an Israeli who was stabbed by a terrorist. And you see the knife was still in his back when they took this picture. And here is the picture of the terrorist. And the terrorist was 17 years old. And this is the article. This is from the article that appeared in the Palestinian newspaper. Zahudi al-Tawil, a 17-year-old youth, was shot and died as a martyr. Local sources said the martyr is an outstanding high school student in the science track. So he's not a problem child. He's not someone who's out in the streets. He's an outstanding student in science. Why would an outstanding student in science take this knife with him to school, and on the way home from school, try to murder an Israeli? What is it in the world of the Palestinian child that is motivating even good children to be terrorists? And this is the question I want to explore today. How does the Palestinian Authority turn children into terrorists? How do they turn good people into terrorists? Now, I mentioned we studied Palestinian Authority sports, and I want to show you how even something as innocent as sports can be a powerful tool in this bag of the Palestinian Authority, this bag of terror promotion of the PA. Now, what you see here is a picture that appeared of a Palestinian Authority sporting event, and it was called the Dalal Mughrabi Sports Festival. Now, here you see all the girls, young women participating in the sports festival have actually a sweatshirt with a picture of this person, Dalal Mughrabi. Who was Dalal Mughrabi? Dalal Mughrabi hijacked this bus in 1978. 37 civilians were killed. These 12 children were killed. She hijacked it with others. She actually led the bus hijacking. It was the most lethal attack in Israel's history. So because she led the most lethal attack, she has this whole sporting festival named after her. And all the children are walking around with her picture on their sweatshirt all the days of the tournament. There have been dozens of sporting events in all the different sports named after Dalal Mughrabi. The Palestinian Authority, in addition, has named 5 schools after Dalal Mughrabi. They've named 31 other schools after other terrorists. So what we're seeing here is a pattern of role modeling for children where sporting events, schools, and you name it, are being named after terrorists. Now, I want to show you what they do in the schools themselves in a school book about this same Dalal Mughrabi, who is a mass murderer of children. This is a book that was published in 2017. And after 3 years, the international community forced the PA to take this section out. But I want to show you what they want in their education. Now, they go as follows. Heroes have an important position in every nation. We're proud of them, sing their praise, learn their history and lives. We name our children after them, streets, squares. Every one of us wishes to be like them. And then they ask, who among us has forgotten? They have a list of 10 heroes, every one of them fighters throughout Muslim history, and they also include Dalal Mughrabi. They just told the children, everyone wishes to be like them. You know, all these kids are, these are grade 5. We have 5th grade boys here. You see them, how young they are. 5th grade children in the Palestinian Authority are being told they're supposed to be like Dalal Mughrabi. They're supposed to be like this terrorist who murdered 37 people, including 12 children. And the section ends with bravo to the heroes and scorn to the cowards. So they're telling these young children that if you don't want to be like Dalal Mughrabi, then you're a coward. And if you're willing to be like her, then you're a hero. And there's really nothing in the middle. There's really nothing in the middle. That's the message coming from the Palestinian Authority to its children. I'll give you another example. School book lesson they'll read one time. I want to show you an incredibly powerful message coming to children. This is a school in Bethlehem. This plaque over here you see is at the front entrance to the school in Bethlehem. And what it says on here is that it's to commemorate the martyrs of the Al-Aqsa Intifada. And then it has one specific name, actually two. One of the names it has is the martyr Ayat al-Akhras. Now, who was Ayat al-Akhras? She was the youngest girl suicide bomber, 17-year-old girl suicide bomber. So these high school girls who could be 17 years old are actually walking into school every single day, and they're being told that this 17-year-old suicide bomber is your hero. Very, very powerful role modeling that they're giving here. And they're also telling the children what's expected of them if they want to be a Palestinian hero. So I've given you a couple of examples amongst basically the entire world of the child. Everywhere children go, everywhere adults go, there are pictures of martyrs, there are talk about martyrs, there are events named after martyrs. It's a whole world of literally glorifying terrorists and glorifying the people who've killed Israelis. So the first way they really train children to want to be terrorists is by children seeing terrorists honored, admired, and rewarded everywhere they go, and they get the message, this is what society expects of me. Now, getting now to the ideology that the PA gives to its children. I'm going to give you examples here. I'm going to give you examples at the adult level and then at the children's level. So you'll see everyone's getting it in their own way. At the adult level, it's coming in a way that adults will receive it. And for children, it's coming for children, such as cartoons. So here's an example. Jews are evil. They're connected to Satan. The person you're going to hear speaking in just a moment is Mahmoud al-Abbas. He's Mahmoud Abbas's advisor on Islam. Still today, he gives most of the sermons on Palestinian TV on Friday, the most important religious figure. He's given this message a number of times. Listen to what he says the conflict with Israel is about.
هذا الصراع المحتدم ها هنا في فلسطين بيننا وبين هذا الاحتلال المجرم صورة أخرى من صور الصراع التاريخي بين الحق والباطل، بين الخير والشر. على مدى التاريخ كان هناك صراع بين الخير والشر. الخير يمثله الأنبياء وأتباع الأنبياء، والشر يمثله الأبالسة وأتباع الأبالسة، الشياطين وأتباع الشياطين. ونحن ها هنا لسنا بدعا من الأمر. هو صراع بين حقيقتين، حقيقة الخير وحقيقة الشر، بين مشروعين، مشروع الرحمن ومشروع الشيطان.
This is such an important message, and everybody should learn this, and I wish the international community would recognize this. The conflict is not about territory. It's not about the 1967 territory. It's not about 1948, not about any territories. It's the historic conflict of Muslims against Jews, because Jews are in cahoots with Satan. Jews are connected to Satan. This is vicious, vicious anti-Semitism. Satan is the one who brings all the evil to the world, and Jews are Satan's partner. This is the message coming from the top religious figure, most important religious figure in the Palestinian Authority. And therefore he says, Israel is Satan's project. No matter what borders we're in, we are Satan's project. Therefore, we have no right to anything. We are actually a threat to all of humanity. Now, I want to show you how they give this message to children. Here's a cartoon, Palestinian Authority broadcast. This is part of a series that they broadcast during the Ramadan month twice. Now look at the message here about Jews. And again, remember, they're targeting young children here.
لقد هزمنا يا لعين أمام جندي من جنود الله. إنه الرعب هو من هزم اليهود وأخرجهم من ديارهم في خزي وعار. لقد بنيت خطتي على نار الحقد والكراهية التي تملأ قلوب اليهود.
Okay, so here you have young children, it could be 3, 4, 5, watching a cartoon that's on during the Ramadan. And you've got this scary, ugly Satan here. And who is he going to be using to attack and destroy Muhammad? The Jews. Now, we all know that in Islam, Muhammad has an almost godly position. If you draw a picture of him, it's a capital crime. If you insult him, it's a capital crime. And here they are teaching the children that Jews and Satan combined together to try to destroy Muhammad at the beginning of Islam. Again, very powerful message, but we're also so significant. We're seeing the adult, the top religious leader, saying Jews are partnered with Satan. And now we're seeing how they transmit this message to even very, very young children. Now, let me give you one final example of this demonization. Fatah is supposed to be the moderate party. It's the party of Mahmoud Abbas. I want to show you, they produced a little video to explain the history of Jews in Europe. This is what they produced, and they put it on their Facebook page.
هناك في أوروبا يقيم القوم مخيماتهم وأماكن سكناهم، جيتوهات ضيقة تبنى أعمدتها على الانفكاك عن البشر غرورا واشمئزازا من أغيار لا يرتقون إلى مكانتهم، من أناس هم أفاعٍ أبناء أفاعٍ حسب رؤيتهم. هناك تحاك كل مؤامرات الاستغلال المادي والبشري للغير، ويكره سكان الأرض جيتوهات القوم ومخازن تصدير الحقد والاستغلال ليتحولوا إلى مكون معاد.
This entire documentary literally turns history on its head. Jews were hated. First of all, Jews lived in ghettos, he said, because the Jews wanted to scheme and plot against all of humanity in the ghettos. So therefore, we put ourselves in ghettos. In fact, the truth is, everybody knows the Jews were forced into ghettos by the people that didn't want to live amongst the Jews. And Mary's saying that's why the Jews were hated, because we were scheming. In other words, we were responsible for anti-Semitism. This is the message coming from the moderate party. And we've heard this from so many people. We heard this from Mahmoud Abbas himself, who on television said that the Jews were responsible for anti-Semitism because of usury and other parts of their behavior. This was Mahmoud Abbas. So anti-Semitism is the Jews' problem because the Jews are so evil. The Jews brought it on ourselves. This documentary says that the Jews led the project to enslave humanity. We allied with the Nazis to accumulate wealth. But the key is here, Jews were hated because of their racism and filthy behavior. In other words, the non-Jewish world has a right to hate us because of our racism and our behavior. That's the message coming from the PA to Israel. So that's the first message. The Jews are this evil force in the world connected to Satan. Now, then the Palestinian authorities focus it in a little more. Israel endangers Palestinians specifically. Now, I want to show you how they do this. Again, everything has hundreds of examples. I'm giving you just a few. Now, I showed you this picture a moment ago. Now, it's clear here, this was an attack on this Israeli soldier, and then this guy was killed. Look at the way now, in the Palestinian newspaper, this picture didn't appear. Only this picture did. And this is what they wrote. 17-year-old youth was shot by the occupation forces and died as a martyr yesterday after a stabbing operation by extremist Israelis. That's the way they presented it. Israel was doing the stabbing operation. And then on Fatah News, this is what they wrote. They said on the news, today the occupation police killed a young man at the beginning of his life on the pretext of carrying out a stabbing attack, which is a pretext that it uses every time. Every time. In other words, every time a Palestinian terrorist, and we see this all the time, every time a Palestinian terrorist is killed in the act of stabbing an Israeli, they claim that it's a pretext. They claim that he was innocent and that we are targeting them. This is the message. So again, if you're a Palestinian, you're a child, and you're being taught that Israelis are constant killing, aren't you going to hate them? Now, here's a children's program. They do exactly. This is called The Best Home. It's targeting. It's intended for children 3, 4, 5, and 6. look what they teach them. The occupation is deliberately killing Palestinian children. This is a very painful thing. Again, when children are young and impressionable, they're getting all these horrific hate messages. Now, everyone knows that the Nazis were the most evil, well, what they were responsible for the death of 80 million people, 6 million Jews. So the Palestinian Authority, after years of denying the Holocaust, has now changed it around. And instead of denying the Holocaust, which was getting them into trouble internationally, they're now blaming Israel for being like the Nazis and doing our Holocaust against them. That's their new strategy. I want to show you, we collected just all the examples from January through April of this year. So I want to see how common it is in the official sources of the Palestinian Authority and Fatah. So here you have a picture of Netanyahu, a drawing of Netanyahu and Hitler together. And the text over here is Adolf Netanyahu. This is Fatah. And then you have all these articles. Israel's becoming a state similar to Nazi Germany. Means more cruel and despicable than the Nazis did to the Jews. Detention camps are similar to the Nazi crematorium. What's happening in Palestine is the second Holocaust. And then it goes on and on and on. All of this just in a few months. So the Jewish people are this evil, evil thing. Look what we're doing to the poor Palestinians. We're doing what Hitler did to them, the Jews are doing to the Palestinians. This is the message coming from the Palestinian Authority to its people. Now, after going to this message that we're attacking Palestinians, they then go to, and of course, everything's in parallel here. There's a message that we're attacking Islamic holy sites. Now, this is very important. Palestinians are a very religious people. The Al-Aqsa Mosque is very important for them. When I say very religious, we're talking about polls show over 95% of Palestinians always say that religion is important to them. Now, look what they teach their adults and look what they teach their children. So first of all, at the adult level, this is the Mufti, the highest religious figure. There's an attack on the existence of the Al-Aqsa Mosque. There are calls to destroy the Al-Aqsa Mosque and establish the alleged temple in its place. So this is the libel we've been hearing for years. Creates a lot of fear amongst Palestinians and anger that we are planning to destroy the Al-Aqsa Mosque. October 12th, we heard it just literally a few weeks ago. Israel's doing the following as a preface to the destruction of the Al-Aqsa Mosque and establishing the third temple in its place. Palestinians are petrified about this. There was one poll a number of years ago, 50% of Palestinians believed that Israel's planning to destroy the mosque based on these lies that the Palestinian Authority gives. Now, I want to show you how they pass this on to their very young children. This is a 7th grade Palestinian Authority school book. They have here a picture of an Israeli tractor. See the Magen David, a tractor driven by an Israeli. Here you've got the Dome of the Rock on top, part of the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound. And look what the children are told to do. Think about and look at the following cartoon and write a paragraph about the message that the illustrator wanted to convey. So they want to make sure that every child sits down and actually writes out the words. Illustrator wanted to convey the message that Israelis are planning to destroy the Al-Aqsa Mosque. They're planning to, one way or another. This is, so they're getting it at the adult level from the top religious figures and the political figures. And they're also giving it to the children, even in cartoons. Now, I want to show you how common and how often this is. Within the last month, October 10th, 16, 18, and 19, they put 4 new cartoons on PATV. We've shortened them so that you can get them all briefly to see what's going on. But I want to show you that every few days, another one of these cartoons started appearing on Palestinian official TV. The Hatikva, the national anthem, the Israeli is playing this tune of the national anthem and a snake with a shovel comes up. See, this is the coronavirus. This is the Israeli soldier. Jerusalem is caught between 2 waves. Israel is a snake, Israel's a coronavirus. Just these are fillers that they put on Palestinian TV to just between shows, and this is what they're spending their money producing on official Palestinian television. Incredible and incessant demonization of Israelis. We are trying to destroy their holy sites, and we're trying to destroy them. Those are the two messages coming through from the PA to their people. Now, going from what we're doing to them as people, there's the other message of Israel's existence, not the Israelis now, but Israel. Palestinians are victims because Israel exists. All of Israel is stolen, occupied Palestine. There is no truth whatsoever, and you'll see this in a moment, to the claim that the Palestinians just talk about Judea and Samaria, what they call the West Bank, and Gaza. They want everything. They tell it to their people openly, and I want to show this to you in their own words. So first of all, this is the ideology. October 30th, just a little over a week and a half ago. What is the ideology they teach the people? The Jews are a religion. Israel, therefore, has no right to be a state. Now, this is the official newspaper of the Palestinian Authority, controlled by the PA. The Balfour Declaration is the summary of a large and dangerous colonialist project. A people, in quotation marks, the Jewish people, was invented that did not exist until then. Until the Balfour Declaration, there were no Jewish people. This is what they say. They were simply Jews of different races and nations. Jews, they're saying, was a religion in the framework of a complicated act and fabrication. The project included establishing a national homeland for the Jewish people, which was just invented. So this is incredible. First of all, it's incredible projection here of the truth. The Palestinian Authority was literally, Palestinians were just invented as a people until the establishment of the state of Israel. It was actually Jews who identified as Palestinians for actually a couple of centuries. You talk about the Palestinian Talmud, which is the Jerusalem Talmud's translation to Hebrew. Jews were the Palestinians. We stopped being, they were, so here what they're doing is they know what they are, so they actually accuse us of being like them. So the Balfour Declaration, they are saying here, that's what invented the Jewish people. And therefore they say, we don't have any right to exist. Now I'm going to show you a little film. These films are so important. This was put on a program called Farhan and Friends, a program for young Palestinian children. And look what they're telling them Palestine's borders are and Palestinian coast.
السهل الساحلي الفلسطيني هو وجه فلسطين نحو البحر المتوسط والعالم العربي ونقطة احتكاك حضاري بين الشرق والغرب ويمثل بوابة فلسطين للعالم. يمتد الساحل الفلسطيني من جبل الكرمل شمالاً إلى رفح على الحدود المصرية جنوباً ويقع بين المرتفعات الجبلية الفلسطينية شرقاً والبحر الأبيض المتوسط غرباً. فيه العديد من الموانئ مثل ميناء حيفا وعكا ويافا وأسدود وعسقلان وغزة وقد توافدت عليه مختلفة عبر العصور طمعاً للاستفادة من موقعه وما زال الساحل الفلسطيني تحت الاحتلال.
Okay, this is the whole thing is incredible. I mean, could you imagine Mahmoud Abbas coming to Washington and saying, we believe that Haifa, Akko, Yafo, and Ashdod and Ashkelon are Palestinian ports? If they throw them out in a second. No, but that's the double language. That's the different messages to their own people. And what I'm constantly trying to impress on members of government is ignore what they tell you, look what they're telling their own people. So here you have it very clearly. Palestine is under occupation since 1948. Now, the great myth is that the Palestinian Authority tells the world they're just against the occupation, and the world says, okay, they just want the West Bank. They're making it very clear to their own people. The term occupation means all of Israel, occupation since 1948, since Israel's creation. And that's why every single part of Israel belongs to them according to this message. In the school books and in the maps, this is the map that appears sometimes with the Palestinian flag, sometimes without, but it's clear. And in fact, in this school book, it says this is the geographical area of the state of Palestine. There's no question this is what they're teaching their people. That school that I showed you before that has the plaque for the suicide bomber who was 17, right next to the plaque is this. Again, the same map. They see that every time they walk into school. All of Israel is ours. Everything is Palestine. This is a summer camp this year. many, many maps. Constantly, it's a constant message. The kids can't possibly forget it. This is what they're being told. Never, ever saw a Palestinian child draw a picture of Palestine that just had the West Bank. Impossible. They would never do it in a million years. A teacher who had them do that would be thrown out of the school system in an instant. Now, I want to show you this item of a child. And this is fascinating because this boy was born in a refugee camp in Ramallah, right next to Ramallah. Now, what's outrageous here, and people don't realize this, they think of refugee camps for Palestinians. Now, of course, these aren't real refugees. These are children and grandchildren of refugees because there are very few refugees that have survived since 1948. But so this boy was born in a refugee camp next to Ramallah. Now, why, since the Palestinian Authority has existed since 1994, why is he still in a refugee camp next to Ramallah? Ramallah is their capital city. Why isn't he taken out and given a life? No, they are forced to be in refugee camps. 60% of the population of Gaza are officially refugees. It's outrageous. Let them have a life. No, in any case, so this is a 12-year-old boy. Now, he's interviewed on TV, and I want you to see how he talks about Lod. He's never been to Lod, but listen to the way he talks on Palestinian TV.
وبيرتقي بالآتي. اليهود سلبوا أرضنا منا وأنا صار لي 12 سنة بنظر وأبوي صار له 40 سنة سيدي له 70 سنة بنظر لأنه اليهود اغتصبوا أرضنا وأخذونا وسكنونا في المخيمات. بتمنى أرجع على لد مدينتي. بتحس إنه بكرة رح نرجع؟ بحس حالي بكرة راجع ونحن.
Tomorrow I will return and liberate Palestine. And again, he's not talking about Judea and Samaria. He lives in Samaria near Ramallah. He is talking about Israel is going to be liberated as Palestine. So this is the message children get. This is actively done. This is a rebroadcast earlier this year. Constant messaging on Palestinian TV. Now, it's not. They also tell their people, I'm going to give you a few examples to show you how common it is. All of these are recent. Israel's days are numbered. This is the Mufti twice in October of this year and September. Palestine has been occupied by many peoples and many invaders have entered it. But in the end, the occupation left and the invaders left. A few weeks later, history has never let the colonialists remain and the occupiers have always left in the end. One day, too, the Jews will return to where they came from. That same day, the fate of the present invaders will be no better. When they leave, we'll preserve for them one line written in blood in our land's history. They'll surely leave defeated, on and on. One final example. All of this, just remember, in a few-week period, today, after 104 years since the Balfour Declaration, the world is still incapable of correcting the historic mistake. Now, how do you correct the mistake of the Balfour Declaration? You destroy Israel. After 100, it says, by putting an end to the colonialist Zionist project. This is the official PA newspaper. In other words, Israel, the colonialist Zionist project that he won't even name by name, has to be destroyed, has to come to an end. Then he writes, after 104 years, the conflict still continues and will not stop until this promise, the Balfour promise, and its consequences, meaning the state of Israel, are canceled. This conflict will continue until Israel is destroyed. Where is this? In the official Palestinian newspaper. All of these examples were official PA sources, all within the last month. That's what's going on in the PA. There is no question this is their ideology. They teach it to their children. They teach it to their adults. And the world somehow is still not as much as before. We've impacted tremendously, but a lot of people still, or it almost seems every time there's a new administration, they have to be re-educated from the past. Now, because of all this, and the question was, how do you teach good people to be terrorists? Because of all of this, killing Israelis then becomes something really ideal that even good people are going to want to do. Israelis are killing us. They're targeting our children. They're killing our children and then claiming that they were terrorists with knives. They're also connected to Satan. Put all these things together. Well, I'm a good Palestinian young man. I want to do what's right. I have to kill Israelis because they're Allah's enemy. They want to destroy the Al-Aqsa Mosque and put a temple there. All of these reasons make it justified. And again, not just for the fringe, but for good people as well. They think that they're going to be heroes. They're doing the right thing. And of course, they're going to be honored afterward. All of this is acting on the kid. Now, they do, though, in addition, teach them the final message. Now here's that same Mahmoud al-Abbas. This is Abbas's advisor. He went on TV and he literally explicitly said all the reasons you're allowed to kill the Jews. And he's backing this up with the Quran. He's saying this is what Islam wants of you. So he quotes from the Quran, kill them. And he says, Allah doesn't like the transgressors, so kill them, kill them. Then he says, if someone attacks me, my home, my land, my homeland. Now listen, all of these things he says are reasons to kill other people are all things they accuse Israel of doing, right? Israel attacks them, they say, their home, their land, their homeland, their honor, their family, their existence, your rights. If they do any of these, you have a right to kill them. And then he goes and he says, he quotes again from the Quran, kill them wherever you find them. This is just an unbelievable statement of go out and kill any Israeli you find, everywhere you find him, coming from the most important religious figure. And he's saying, who wants this of you? Not me, Mahmoud al-Abbas, not the Palestinian Authority. This is what Allah wants of you. This is what Muhammad wants of you. Because this is Islam. That's what he's saying here. And that's the incredible tragedy, again, I mentioned to you. Palestinians are a very religious people. And here they're packaging the killing of Israelis as something that Allah wants of them. Kill you, kill them. Kill them if they do any of these things that, of course, everyone knows Israel is being accused of doing. Occasionally, they even make it explicit what their end game is. This is one sermon, which was very long. I'll just read to you one line here, or a couple of lines. Why did Allah curse the Jews? Because they have these malignant genes and cursed characteristics. They transfer them from generation to generation. They inherit it father to son. Humanity will never be able to live together with them. Humanity can't live with us. Therefore, killing us is good for humanity. It's not just good for Palestinians. It's good for humanity. This is the message coming from the Palestinian. And then he ends this with, count them and kill them one by one, a prayer to Allah. Count them and kill them one by one. Do not leave even one. Extermination. On Palestinian Authority official TV, if any Jew would have ever, an Israeli would have ever talked about killing even one Palestinian so clearly, first of all, he'd be in jail, but the whole front page of the New York Times, etc. Here, talking about extermination of the Jewish people on official PATV. We publicized it, we sent it out to all the press. Some of it was picked up by, of course, the proper press, but the mainstream press just doesn't want to hear the story, so they let it just go by. Oh, it's the occupation. Now, final example that I'll show you, and this is important, and I show this when I'm in Congress and with members of American government. The Palestinian Authority wants to target America as well. And this is something from just a few months ago. The person speaking is very significant because he is in the Ministry of Religion, and he's in charge of teaching all the preachers in the Palestinian Authority. And what did he say on TV? He said, the war of the Crusaders are like ISIS regarding the Muslims. They bore the cross to spill blood. The bloody wars of the Crusaders ended here. The end of all oppressed and tyrants was in Palestine. That's one of Jerusalem's blessings. Allah willing, the end of the Jews and America that supports the Jews will be in Palestine. So he goes on to this whole speech here against Crusaders, but then he said, America and the Jews are like the Crusaders. They're going to be destroyed here in Palestine. Their end is going to be here in Palestine. Now, again, you have a serious person on salary of the Palestinian Authority. Every time you give the Palestinian Authority money, you're paying his salary, you're paying Mahmoud al-Abbas, you're paying Mufti, you're paying for PATV, you're paying for all of this. Every time you give the Palestinian Authority money, which the United States wants to do again now. And this is the messages. This is the poison that's coming through. Now, final thing here is from the adults to the children. The adults are being told to kill in the name of Allah. Children aren't listening to sermons. Children are listening to music. And this is one of the main means that they tell them. They use music videos. Now, why are music videos important? There was this article in the Wall Street Journal during the time that ISIS was using music videos to attract people. They said the rhyme and the beat, especially appealing to youth, the catchy sing-along method for propagating ISIS ideology means it spreads quickly. It's far more effective than sermons or theological debates. So music works better even than theology. Now listen to Palestinian TV, how they mix music and murder on official TV. goes on and on. Now, what's incredible is this was repeatedly broadcast on Palestinian Authority official television in 2020. There was no war going on in 2020. Why were they presenting music videos telling people to put on explosive belts, suicide bombers, and blow themselves up in Haifa and in Idlib? Goes on later and says, strap on the belt, daughter of my land, detonate it in front of the enemies. How sweet is the taste of martyrdom? I have found none like it. Martyrdom, the best flavor, the sweetest flavor. This is what PATV is putting on, these kind of music videos. I want to show you one that ran for 4 years on Palestinian television from 2017, all of 2017 and 2020. 4 years they ran this, probably hundreds of times. Begging, literally begging for martyrdom. Let us be. Now, what do? They say 1 million grooms and brides at the celebration. Why is it a celebration and why are they grooms and brides? Of course, because they teach their people the Islamic tradition that someone who dies for Allah and becomes a martyr, in Arabic, a shaheed, actually marries, goes to heaven, goes to paradise, and marries 72 dark-eyed virgins. So therefore, if you blow yourself up in a suicide bombing and you kill yourself and you kill Israelis, then you go to heaven and you get 72 virgins. And that's why it's a celebration, with 1 million grooms and brides at the celebration. He ends the song with, filled with desire, they are going to the paradise of immortals, to a wedding procession with angels that filled Palestine with light. An incredible song. And I'm saying this ran 4 years on Palestinian TV. And during this video, they showed the picture of 2 suicide bombers. So if anyone had a question of what they were talking about, they literally showed Ayat al-Akhwas and Wafa Idris, 2 suicide bombers. Here's another video. They ran this 20 times in a period of 8 days earlier this year, just to give you a sense of the intensity of the videos. I fired my shots, I threw my bomb, I detonated my explosive belts. Our bullets will make the sounds of joy and herald the signs of victory in order to cut the invading occupiers. This is the Palestinian Authority that the American administration is saying today. They want to invite them to Washington and start giving them money. This is moderate. This is literally a terrorist organization. And I'm just giving 3 examples amongst the hundreds of different videos promoting terror that we hear all the time. Now, from teenagers and young adults and even young children, they also go down to very young children. October 22nd, this was on TV 2 weeks ago. Look what they had on 2 weeks ago. 2 little girls singing a song in honor of a relative of theirs who stabbed 4 people.
باسم الحرية ضحي بالأرواح فلسطين عربية يا أرض الكفاح وإحنا مش ناسين أرضك يا فلسطين واللي بتعدى.
But of course we'll sacrifice our lives, that the children are being taught that their lives are important. This is on TV November 3rd, literally a couple of days ago, to show you how. So there you hear the children talking, they want to give their lives. Here's a man, a senior Fatah official, being interviewed on TV. He talks about this usurped land, meaning where Israel is. It was stolen in 1917 in the cursed Balfour Declaration. We are still defending the stolen land, again, meaning all of Israel. And we will give our blood and the blood of our children and our families for the sake of Allah and the homeland. So the adults are telling their children that they're supposed to be dying for the sake of the homeland. That's the outrage here. That's the outrage here. And that's the messages that the children get. So if you wonder again why the children are going out to be terrorists. And the final item I'll show you, and then we'll open up to some questions, is again, the message of martyrdom for children. This Fatah put on their Facebook page, this was a young Palestinian girl who actually said this poem on the radio. But initially, Fatah heard the poem, decided it was so fantastic, they wanted to actually show the video on their Facebook page. Listen to this girl.
فأمه وعدته بهدية إن هو أنهى طعامه تساءل بجنون ألعبة تكون أقبلت أمه بطلة بهية تحمل الهدية نظر إليها فإذا بها بندقية صاح بأعلى صوته يا أمي يا أمي ما هذه أهذه هي الهدية ضمته إليها واحتضنته بيديها وقالت يا بني لم نخلق للسعادة فأنت في نظري مشروع للشهادة فالقدس لنا وسلاحنا إسلامنا وذخيرتنا أبناؤنا.
Okay. Islam is our weapon and our ammunition is our children. That's the message that they've given. That's the message this girl gives. That's the message that Fatah thought was so important. They put it on their Facebook page. Children are ammunition. Remember, I started with the title of this presentation, Palestinian Authority, Child Abuse of Their Own Children. Well, what greater child abuse is it than to tell a human being you have no value for yourself. Your entire value is ammunition for Islam. And therefore, you are destined for martyrdom. That's the message. That is child abuse. And all of these messages, the lies that they teach them, the demonization of Israelis, which make them hate Israelis and fear Israelis, so they can't even live near Israelis. This is all part of the child abuse for their own political purposes. And of course, you have a generation of children who feel that it's the right thing to do to take a knife and go out, stab an Israeli, to take a gun when they get older and shoot an Israeli. This is the way they've been brought up, not just to kill Israelis, of course, but to also want to themselves be martyrs because they were told this is what Allah wants of you, and this is the most you can do, is to be a martyr for Allah. You are destined for martyrdom. You are only ammunition. This is the Palestinian Authority to its children. This is child abuse. Okay, let me pause now. And I will stop the share and we will open up to questions.
We just want so much. My boys are, thank you so much. We enjoyed it. It's so educational. Thank you.
Hello.
Not hello, just say thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Very informative. Thank you. Have a good time.
Judy, you're talking, but you're muted.
You need to unmute yourself.
Okay.
There you go. From Carol, the sick thing is this is taught in Israeli Arab towns and villages. Israel doesn't regulate the hate taught in Israeli schools. This is outrageous. The teachers and admins in Israel should be arrested. So yeah, this is true, that this is also taught in Arab Israeli schools. What can be done about that, Itamar?
Okay, so first of all, the totality of this message is a Palestinian Authority message. Israeli Arabs can get this on Palestinian Authority television. So that's the first thing. In the school system, they don't have the same school books. Throughout Israel, there are separate Arabic language school book curriculum that has had some problems over the years. Israel's tried to fix it up. The bigger problem is East Jerusalem, where Israel allows them in a number of the schools to actually use Palestinian school books. On the other hand, Israeli television, Arabic broadcasting is not showing this. But like I said, if they have a satellite dish, and most of them do, they actually have access to Palestinian Authority TV. So this is the Palestinian Authority. Israeli Arabs, there are problems with Israeli Arabs, but that's a whole separate story. And I don't want people to think that this is the message that the Israeli Arabs are giving. They're giving a problematic message, but it's not this.
Okay. Tova Abadi asked a question regarding US funding. And I know that in the previous administration, US funding to the PA was cut enormously. and it has been restored somewhat. And my understanding is that they would like to restore it even to a greater extent. And I'm going to kind of editorialize a little bit on what Tova asked. In view of the Taylor Force Act, how can the U.S. justify funding the teaching of terror and the terror textbooks, all of that?
Okay, so under the Trump administration, the Taylor Force Act was passed. Taylor Force Act says that if the Palestinian Authority continues to pay salaries to terrorists, or as long as they pay salaries to terrorists and don't cancel their law, which grants terrorist prisoners salaries, then they can't get any American funding. Now, by the way, the only reason the world knows that the Palestinian Authority pays salaries to terrorists is because of Palestinian Media Watch. We exposed that. We brought that information to the Israeli government. They didn't know it. We brought it to the European countries. We brought it to the United States Congress. And eventually 4 countries, the United States was just one of 4 countries that cut off all funding to the PA because of this. And many other countries cut off significant funding. So that was one of our great successes, was exposing to the world that they pay these salaries. Now, under United States law today, they can't give the Palestinian Authority any funding under certain clauses in the American budget. What the United States did now to start funding right away is they gave money to UNRWA. Taylor Force Act does not limit funding to UNRWA. President Trump canceled the funding to UNRWA because of its support for terror and because of the school books, because of the fact that UNRWA was so corrupt, and because of the fact that it was the UNRWA schools were being, they were using them to hide terror. So in any case, it was those terror links. So the United States cannot start funding the Palestinian Authority in a serious way now because of the restrictions of Taylor Force. So they're funding UNRWA, and they're looking for ways to bypass the Taylor Force Act. I think it would be an embarrassment to them to cancel the Taylor Force Act. I'm not sure they'd even be able to. So they're not trying to. So they're trying to bypass it. For example, certain things, they're calling certain things humanitarian assistance, as opposed to actually funding and claiming it's something else. They're not giving it to the Palestinian Authority, they're giving it to projects, whereas Taylor Force Act prevents them from giving to the PA, but it doesn't say that you can't build, let's say a water purification plant. So they're going to try to help them in ways that bypass the Taylor Force Act. My response is that if you bypass the Taylor Force Act and you give them money for that water purification, then you're freeing up the money so that they can continue to give $350 million a year to terrorists. It's an outrage. It's bypassing the spirit, if not the letter of the law. And we're hoping that there'll be enough opposition amongst the Democrats who do not like the Palestinian Authority terror support that the Biden administration won't be able to get away with it.
Okay. Can you speak, Joseph Flashner has asked, can you speak about archaeological sites controlled by the Palestinians? And also, he wants to know your opinion on why the PA has never printed its own currency if they claim to be independent.
Well, the archaeological sites are a big problem. The Palestinian Authority, any archaeological sites that have proof or anything that connects Jewish history to the land, they try to destroy. This is what they did on the Temple Mount, where they took out hundreds and hundreds of trucks filled with dirt and earth. In the end, I'm not sure you're familiar, but the Israeli archaeologists then decided to start this sifting project where they got volunteers, thousands upon thousands of Israelis came, and also tourists who came, and they spent weeks at a time sifting through all of the sand, and they found incredible artifacts. The only problem is they know that they were from the Temple Mount. They don't know at which level they were from. That's unfortunate, but in any case, it was, so that's the Palestinian Authority. Because of this ideology, the Jews never had a nation, never had a state. We started with the Balfour. This is Palestinian Authority ideology. There was no temple. They refer to the temple as, in Arabic, Hikal Mazum, which means a fictitious temple, the alleged temple. So they therefore try to destroy anything that shows Israeli history in archaeology. And the other question was, what was the second question?
The second question was about currency.
Oh, yes,
normally a government,
right? No,
the
Oslo Accords say that the Palestinian Authority is going to continue using Israeli currency. They have no financial basis to create their own currency, even if they decided to ignore the Oslo Accords. It would be a disaster. It would, they print it at some value, and then it would, it would end up being like the Iranian or Lebanese currency. It would just lose all the value. And in fact, Palestinian, it would be a disaster for them, because Palestinians are too smart and they would not use it. They would only continue to use the shekel. So that's probably why they're not doing it.
Okay, we've had a lot of questions about the availability of this to show other people and to watch again. Tomorrow there will be, and in case you missed it, that will come out, and the recording of this will be on that. It also will be on our website under www.afsi.org/videos.
Let me also add to that. Let me Judy, also add to that if anyone wants a copy, not just of the video, but actually of the PowerPoint presentation, so that you can give it to students or make the presentation yourselves, I'd be happy to offer it to you. Let me see if I can give you a slide. 1 second. I'm going to share a screen here and find a slide where you have my address, so you get it right. 1 second. Here. You can just write to donna@palwatch.org and write that you want a copy of the AFSI presentation, and just put it in the subject line, and we will send you a copy of this presentation, and you can use it. You can take it apart and use any parts of it you want. If you just want to show that last video of the children, the little girl who thinks that she's ammunition, and then have a discussion about that, you can use whatever you want. So anyone who wants a copy, just write to me and to Donna, and we will send it to you.
There's an amazing video on your Facebook page of a little 3-year-old boy telling his mother to go home, and that he wants to be a martyr for Jerusalem. It's heart-wrenching.
Would you like me to show it?
It's heart-wrenching.
Would you like to see it now? Should I show it to the people now?
Sure.
Okay, I can show it to you right now. Oops, sorry. 1 second.
يما يا أمير وين رايح؟
سميه على أبوي. قال له أنا أمير وأنا أمير.
خوفتني يما، وين هالمشوار؟
الكاس.
بعيد يما يا أمير.
لا يما، هي والله جبل. أنت روحي روحي.
عمير رايح؟
الشهيد أمام ليلى صحابه طول وقت طول عمل عمل بوس على راسه. قال أنا عمل أنا ولادك.
بتخوك اليهود يما يا أمير وبتموت.
هذه يما روح فينا الكف. هي الكف أستاذ موت عشانها. المسجد الأقصى أستاذ موت عشانها. المسجد الرسول أستاذ موت عشانها. هي كذا حرام. هي كذا حرام.
Okay, an outrageous video. Fatah thought that was also valuable enough to put on their Facebook page. When I say this is what I've shown you today is a drop in the bucket, it's endless. It's been going on for years. This is the world of the Palestinian child, and that is why it's child abuse, and that's why we have teenage terrorists.
Just as a closing, it's hard to believe that the U.S. can continue to support this organization. Do you know, does the State Department monitor this at all, or do they only see it when you bring it to them?
What we have found over the years is that every new administration has to be re-educated. I had meetings in the White House under Bush, and then I had meetings later on. I had meetings under the Obama administration. Netanyahu was very, I didn't meet with Trump, but Netanyahu was actually doing the work for us. We were supplying him with videos. He was showing them to Trump. Trump was referring to them. When the administration, and it's true in all the countries, we're constantly having to re-educate. There are new elections, there are new people, and everyone, and that's why it's a constant job of going back. Before COVID, the years before COVID, I was reaching between 20 and 30 different governments a year. Sometimes I do 3 and 4 parliaments in a week. Often there'd be delegations from different parliaments in Israel, but I was getting to 20 to 30 governments in a year. And the impact was always very, very good. No one can argue with this material because I'm not coming in and telling them my opinions. I'm coming in and saying, this is what the Palestinian Authority is telling their people. This is what they're telling the children. And if someone says, well, maybe it's one example, I'll say, well, you can go to our website and find another 50 or another 100. Everything I showed you today is just literally the tip of the iceberg, and it's been ongoing and it's continuing. Literally every day we have our translators, we have a meeting at the end of the day and everybody reports what they found, and it is just mind-boggling how they just continue these same hate messages over and over and over again.
Keep it simple. I do have one more question before we close out. Judith Hirschhorn asked the question, how do Jewish organizations which promote Muslim-Jewish dialogue, like the Hartman Institute, which has a Muslim Leadership Institute, deal with this incessant PA narrative?
There are different responses that I get from people, let's say, well, first of all, before we talk about that, I just want to point out that one of the things Palestinian Media Watch is doing now is we are working with Palestinians who are outraged by this themselves. There have been Palestinians who have met with me, with members of parliament, and it's very, very powerful. I show this material and the Palestinian continues and says, yes, I was brought up on this hatred. I thought that Jews were evil. I thought that they wanted to kill me. And in most cases, the Palestinians are working with are all people who at some point in their lives met Israelis or met an Israeli and then realized that their whole worldview had been a lie beforehand. And then they're not just interested in befriending Israelis, they want Israel to influence the Palestinian population, teach them values, help them in other ways. And they literally are furious with their leaders, hate their leadership, because they felt like they were abused and lied to all those years. So one of our goals is to try to increase this amongst Palestinians. These Palestinians don't want a Palestinian state right now with this leadership. They say if that happens, we'll never be able to live there. Like I said, I've been with Palestinians who've said this to members of parliament. So I'm saying this because I know that the polls show the majority of Palestinians have been impacted by this kind of education and hate promotion. And teenagers are going out on terror attacks, but there are Palestinians now, and I'm hoping that it's a growing population amongst Palestinians who are just so sick of this and so sick of their leaders that maybe we'll be able to find some kind of a basis, of some kind of a dialogue that can then grow and they can actually impact on more and more people. One of the tragedies of these people are, and this is one of the reasons why it's hard for them to expand, is none of them will do anything in public. They're afraid to speak in public. One of them, and this was fascinating, when one of the members of parliament I was meeting with here in Israel. One of the members of parliament, this was Dutch parliament, asked the Palestinian who was with me, he said, how many Palestinians think like you? He said, difficult to say because I can't tell people my opinions because I'd end up in a Palestinian prison being tortured. So they said to him, how many people know your opinions? He says, maybe 5 or 6. I'm afraid to tell it to any more people because I could literally be endangering my life. So that blew the MPs away. I mean, and that's why it's so hard to find out how many people actually are sick of the PA leadership, because everybody's afraid to say it if they are.
But we are very often our worst enemy is ourselves. And so we have these Jewish organizations.
Yes, right. Back to the Jewish organizations.
What do we do about them?
Okay, so a few years ago when I was in New York, I met with the heads of the J Street branch in New York. I don't know if they have more than one branch, I can't remember exactly, but it was one particular branch, so 4 people there. And basically what happened by the time we were finished, they were so convinced that this was an important message. They said they would speak to the heads of J Street. I said, listen, I'd be thrilled to come and make this presentation to your annual conference. They said they would speak to the people in charge and see. Now, they never got back to me. So I guess there was some fear. But what I found is that even they were just totally misinformed. Totally misinformed. They had been brainwashed into believing that Palestinians were really peace-loving people. They're not anti-Semitic. They don't hate, and they just want Israel to go out of Judea, Samaria, and then there'd be peace for everyone. So let's just do it. Let's just do it. That's what they believed. And by the time they were finished, they realized, I'm not saying that they changed their opinions, but they understood that this had to be viewed and had to be seen. So that's the message, and that's what's important. I've had MPs literally tell me that their ideology changed from anti-Israel to pro-Israel, and even said publicly by one particular MP in Canada, who said publicly in a speech, which was then written in a newspaper, said, I used to think Israel was the bully of the Middle East until I heard a 1-hour presentation of Palestinian Media Watch. So here was a member of parliament in Canada, who then became, by the way, Israel's greatest defender in Canadian parliament, and set up a whole international legislators against anti-Semitism, and literally, and he was honored at a dinner, and that's where he said this. So I know that even people who are anti-Israel, when they see this, I don't think it'll change the members of the squad, but I think a lot of people who are in the middle, who are misinformed and uninformed, can be changed by this information, and I've seen it.
Well, I see we've run way over time, and I have to thank you for speaking truth to power and speaking truth to us. And I know it's been a very impactful session, and we can't thank you enough. So continue your wonderful work. And we hope to see you again here, or even better, in Yerushalayim or Efrat.
Right, and if anyone wants to receive our bulletins, which you can then pass on to other people, it's the same address. Write to donna@palwatch.org and say, please put me on your list to receive your regular updates. All these videos, as they come out, you'll get them in your inbox. And then you could pass them on. You can use them, give them to university students so that they can fight for Israel. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Shalom, shalom.
Shalom. Bye.
Bye.